Welcome to another episode of the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kelly, and today we're diving into a story that's as rich as the soil south of the equator. Our guests today, Monolo Matos from Calvary Chapel Lima and John Bonner of CCBC Peru, have a passion to see new churches planted in this thriving region. We'll explore the history of Christianity in Peru, the current gospel response, and the hunger for new churches. Monolo and John shed light on why South America should be a priority for church planting, highlighting challenges that demand creative solutions. Funding, education, and support emerge as pivotal needs for church planters in this area. Stay tuned to be inspired, challenged, and move to action in the mission of church planting. Let's go. Okay, welcome to the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast, and I'm here with two men of God from south of the... Are you guys south of the equator?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. I got it right. In Peru, and we have Monolo, and you are in Lima?
Yes.
Yeah, he and his lovely wife are in Lima, and children?
We have two kids, okay. 7 and 5 almost, girl and a guy.
Okay. Good. And we have Brother John Bonner, and he's here. And are you in Lima as well, or no?
No. 12 years ago, we moved to 9,000 feet in the Andes Mountains.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So we're in the town of Cajamarca.
Cajamarca.
That's where the Bible College is situated, and we have a church there as well.
All right, great. And I've asked these guys to come on today to talk about, well, actually it started because Monolo and I were talking the other day about... he was saying with Cultivate and with church planting, how can we get more church planters or churches planted in Peru, in South America, because there's a really fertile ground for that sort of thing. Yes. So I said, you know what? I think a really good place to do, a good thing to do is to come onto the podcast and share about what's going on, because it's going to be a learning experience for me too, because I've heard of you, John, for a long, long time. You're famous, actually. Okay. With the Bible school and the ministry that you've done down there. And then Monolo, you're not as famous, but we still like you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. And you guys can't see, if you're not watching on the YouTube video, you can see Monolo has a nice mustache. He's a handsome guy here. So just want to make sure we paint the picture before we get into it.
So we like to joke around with John. He's my spiritual father, so to speak. And so John would introduce me as his son to some people, and it's
because of the
we look so
because of the resemblance.
Similar.
Yeah. John's a handsome guy too, as we're sitting here. How long have you guys known each other?
Well, I met John through me coming to the Lord, really, because I was right out of high school, and somebody invited me to Calvary in Lima. And I came to the church, and I grew up Catholic, and I never really knew the gospel. Had a sort of falling out with I grew up Catholic, and so I had a falling out with the Catholic Church right around my teenage years. And when I came to church, when I came to Calvary, I heard the word being taught for the first time. That was sort of mind-blowing to me that, you could do that. And I understood it for the first time, and I understood that it also meant a decision needed to happen on my end to either accept it and live by it, or reject it, or whatever. And so I did, and kept coming to church, and John was my pastor for all those years. And then I wanted to serve, and I became involved with Bible college. I went through Bible college there. So I met John my whole Christian walk since when I was like maybe 17 forward. Yeah.
He was not only a graduate of the Bible College, but he came on staff with us. He led teams. He was a significant part of our youth group, and as a musician, a part of our worship team for the church as well.
Wow. What instrument do you play? Cello,
saxophone. I play guitar and drums and a little bit of bass, but yeah.
Okay, great. So let's talk about your church, Monolo. You have a Calvary Chapel Church in Lima.
Yes.
That it's called Calvary Lima.
Yep.
And I looked at you can go on the Instagram, follow your page and website, and it looks pretty exciting. Like it looks like a vibrant fellowship, and You guys have modern worship. What's it like there? And for those who aren't familiar with Peru or South America.
That's really interesting because Peru, I don't know, our listeners, I don't know how familiar they are with Peru and South America. A lot of times our sort of like the knowledge space is either Machu Picchu or llamas.
Llamas,
maybe food, ceviche. I don't know,
I love ceviche.
Yeah. And so Peru is very diverse. In Lima, the capital, is right on the Pacific coast there, and it's sort of an anomaly to the whole of Peru because it's the major sort of city there. You would be in Lima, and you would, it's very modern and sort of westernized in that way, and so there's so many different people. It's very, very diverse, Lima. But outside of Lima, things are very different. So a lot more rural. There's another maybe 4 or 5 sort of bigger cities, but a lot more like you would typically understand or having your mind of Peru, like the landscape and the rural and the sort
the
of
mountains and everything. I think of the mountains. Yeah. And that's where you are. You're in the mountains.
That's correct.
Wow. So how many people live in the town, city, or village that you're in?
In the city where we live, Cajamarca, there's about 250,000 people.
Okay. So it's not too small.
Not too small. We have 3 malls.
Okay. Yeah. So
and Lima is 13 million right now, which is insane.
Wow. 13 million.
Yeah.
In Lima. Is it the biggest city?
Yep.
Okay. How far distance are you from each other?
So if you fly, it's about an hour.
Okay.
If you drive, it's about 16.
What if you take a llama?
We'll probably double it or triple it. I don't know. Depends on how fast your llama is.
They're pack animals, though, right? Do people don't ride llamas?
No, not usually.
We actually eat them.
Yeah,
They're
right. You
delicious.
probably know more about
You
this.
can eat llamas? Okay. Yeah. What about alpaca? Is it the same thing?
Delicious. Alpaca is delicious.
Like a burger? Alpaca burger?
yeah,
that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. All right.
Alpaca lunch.
Classic. Love it.
Classic. You've heard this one before? That was my first time.
I mean, I've known John for a long time, so yeah.
Alpaca lunch. I got to use that one now. Yeah.
But so you were asking about the church in Lima, and what the interesting sort of ironic thing for me is, I mentioned earlier how I met John through coming to the church and all that, and I got saved at that church, and that's the church I pastor today because John and I.
Okay. Yeah. I knew that. So did you originally plant the church?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what year was that?
That was in about 2001, I think.
2001.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Way back. And tell us a little bit about your history of how you got to Peru and church planted and that sort of thing. So what's the origin story?
Yes. We went on a couple of evangelistic trips to Peru, and we were helping the very, very poor people that were unfortunately victims of the terrorism at that time. The Shining Path terrorist group, from the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia.
Oh, really?
They were very strong there, and so we went in and we were sharing the gospel, and noticed that the people were very hungry for the gospel.
Yeah.
The government had let them down. The Catholic Church or the religion there had let them down, and they were hungry for something. And so when you put a tract into their hands, they would read it right there in front of you. They would devour it, and then they'd ask you for another one and another for their family members and loved ones.
And here in the U.S., people would be like, "Get that out of my face! Yep. I don't want that."
They'll throw it on the ground.
Throw it on the ground in front of you.
And so we saw that there was genuine hunger for the Word of God. People were hungry for hope, and that was the message that we were able to bring them. So we thought, I went to the Bible College up at Twin Peaks before it moved to Murrieta. I was one of the last graduates on that campus.
What year was that?
96, I think.
96. Wow. Because I was one of the first students when it moved from Twin Peaks to Marietta Conference Center.
Were you ever up at Twin Peaks?
No, but I had friends that were there, and I used to visit. Yeah. So you were out in that class, and then.
That's right.
Okay.
And and so I loved the study of God's Word at the campus. I loved the worship. I loved it when the young people went out and did evangelism. And I thought, we can duplicate this in Peru. we can do the same thing. And so the Lord put it on my heart to take a Bible college to Peru. So we became an affiliate campus.
Yep.
At that time, there were many other campuses that were coming about as well, like in York, England with Dave Sylvester, and in Japan with Tommy, Pastor Tommy there, and they were springing up all over the place. So there was this wave of extension campuses that were going out, and Peru was one of them. And again, it was so easy to share the gospel with people. There was so much hunger that we decided to start a church as well.
Okay.
I was a missionary in Mexico with Juan Domingo. For
I know his son, Jonathan.
For almost 10 years. So we were very active in evangelism there with Horizon Ministries, and we saw several churches being born there. And I thought, well, that was my background, my experience, and we can easily see this happen in Peru as well. And so we started a church in a park, and every week it was growing and growing and growing, and we had to keep buying more and more pop-up tents to have people sit in the shade. And that was the beginnings of the church.
Okay. And I know that you're very proficient in Spanish. Has that always been the case? I mean, even from back in the day, or
No.
How did that come about? Because I know it must be much easier now, just having that.
Well, in high school, I failed Spanish 1.
Me too, actually.
And
How about you, Monolo? Did you fail Spanish in high school?
No, I didn't. I grew up learning. I was born and raised in Peru, and so my first language is Spanish, and English was sort
That's
of
why
like,
the joke was funny.
That's why I didn't get it, right? That's why I didn't get it. And I just learned it through just watching cartoons and all that.
English.
English, yeah.
Okay. Your English is very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
his English was very good even before he had ever visited the States.
Really? Too many cartoons.
Yep.
All that Nickelodeon cartoon.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So then you planted the church. The park, it was growing and growing. You were buying new pop-up tents, and you were able to get a space to meet in? Is it the space that you're in now, or you've moved a couple times?
No, we've moved several times.
Okay.
Yeah, we rented a house, and in the living room of the house, we started having studies, and then we outgrew that. So we found a place in the basement of the library of the local municipality. So we were renting that for a time, but the bathrooms were terribly dirty. It was terrible. And then we were driving down one of the main thoroughfares in Lima, Javier Prado, and my wife looked up and she saw a for rent sign. And
Okay.
so we called, and the price was about right.
The price was about right.
So
It's always just outside of that,
exactly.
just right zone, but that's faith. You can have that faith.
We took a step of faith, rented there, and went to 2 services and 3 services. And then we got kicked out of there and moved to a large auditorium in the Rama Magisterial. And we were there for several years. And that's when Monolo took over the leadership of the church, and they're in other places now.
Is that where so you're in another place now?
Yeah, so after that auditorium, we went to a theater. We rented a theater. It's close by where it used to be. And we were there for a few years, and COVID hit. And we shut down for a year and a half. We were online only for 18 months.
Was that the way it was around Peru? It was pretty strict, or?
Oh, yeah. It was wild.
Yeah.
You can read about it in the news. It was like ridiculous.
Yeah, I was in New Zealand at the time. It was pretty
were you?
crazy too. Yeah.
Did you get stuck in there?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and then after that, we left the theater, and we are currently in another auditorium in San Isidro in Lima,
Okay.
and it's going well.
Good. Good. So when it comes to church planting, and I'm just going back to our conversation we had, that how can we get Cultivate involved? How can we get church planting involved? Because you see a need, a hunger. I assume that, and John, you can back this up, there's still a hunger for God's word. What are your thoughts on, like, is this a urgent issue? Is it something, and how can we get involved with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And the culture has changed since, when John was describing when he first came to Peru, and the hunger of the people and all of that. And that's changed nowadays. It's sort of similar to the US, where, you know, you were saying like people wouldn't even receive a tract, give it to them. But that's sort of like what it looks like today.
Okay.
But the need is still very much present, and people have, you know, in the US, you have this thing of culture, Christianity, and like the sort of like you're born into it type of a situation where, you know, there's a sort of what I perceive as people thinking America is sort of this Christian nation. And, but there's not a, you know, there's a struggle there with, okay, so do we know the gospel and do we walk with Jesus, right? And so Lima or even Peru, like there's that same struggle with like the Catholic like religion. You're born into it type of a thing. But people don't really have the clear sort of understanding of what the gospel means, and the sort of like, you don't have to do all these things in order for God to be okay with you, and there's this like fear. So there's this really deep misunderstanding of the nature of God and the plan of God for people, that when you get to explain to people, it just changes their life. It changed my life.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Two quick questions, and this just come to my mind is how is Peru the same and different from the neighboring countries in South America? And also, what does the church landscape look like? Because I know the Catholic Church is predominantly the main religion. I would assume that's what I've always heard. But what are other like evangelical churches or like mega churches, things like that? Why don't you, because your experience is the first question is because your experience is Peru, but I'm sure you have knowledge of other countries surrounding in the South American world. Why don't you do that one first, John? What is it like there in Peru compared to some of the other South American? Because the reason why I'm asking, I think people are listening and they're thinking, I want to go to Chile, I want to go to Argentina, I want to go to Brazil. Brazil, I know, is different because they speak another language.
Right.
Yeah. So, but what's it like as a whole in South America, and then specifically in Peru?
Well, Monolo might be better prepared to answer that question. I'm thinking,
How long have you been there?
we're starting our 25th year in October.
Okay. Are you even 25 years old?
I'm 18 now. I was pastoring since I was 3.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you're a very godly child.
What do you see the differences between other South American countries?
I think that there is definitely a unique set of idiosyncrasies to each country in South America, but at the same time, there's a lot of similarities. So the plight sort of the forgotten and the poverty stricken, and you know that sort of scenario there that's permeated through South America. And this desire to move ahead in life, and this desire to do well for yourself and your family, and this sort of this understanding of like this, there's more to life than this, and there's a strong sense of resilience in people.
Okay.
I was talking earlier with somebody about Peru and how the last few years have been crazy politically, and surprisingly to myself, you know, as Peruvian, like the country hasn't like imploded. You know, it's been stable.
It survived.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a resilience there.
What about the churches?
Well, they say that there are the national religion is Catholicism, 89% Catholic.
Okay.
And in the 11% that is not Catholic, they include all Protestants, which they would consider Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So, there's a lot of independent, charismatic type of churches.
Right. And that's what I was kind of getting at, because we ministered in East Africa for a long time. And there was kind of a similar thing where, amazingly, so many of these independent, charismatic churches were springing up.
Exactly.
So same there.
Same in all of Latin America, really. And unfortunately, very little teaching. In most cases, the pastors aren't prepared. They haven't seen the model that we've been blessed to use. And so there's a lot of bad teaching out there. A lot of abuse by the leadership of the churches, the pastors who see.
You have a lot of the like prosperity gospel and that sort of thing too.
Yes.
Yeah.
To give you an example, a lady came up to me after teaching on a Sunday morning. I was teaching on tithing, and she said, Pastor, should I continue tithing even though I have a large debt? And I said, well, that's between you and the Lord.
Yeah.
She had a lot of credit card debt.
Yeah.
And she started crying, and she said, can I tell you how I got into debt? And I said, sure, that's fine. And she mentioned that her former pastor told the church that if they all withdrew from their credit cards cash to give to the church, that God would bless them 100 times more. And so that's how she got into credit card debt. And it's an example of what we see often in Peru and Latin America.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's common.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to have to give an account for that, I think.
That's right.
You know, she has to give an account to the credit card companies for the money that she doesn't have, and now they have to give an account to God, I think. Bible teaching, systematic Bible teaching churches are going to be the solution to that. So
Yes.
how do the people kind of get into the Calvary Chapel style of church? Like, what is their response to that type of a church?
I mean, by experience, I can tell you that the response is overwhelmingly positive. You know, when you get to hear and see the truth played out, and how there's this freedom and there's this sort of sense of release, you know, to like, oh, I don't have to work for my salvation. I'm actually already loved. I'm actually already accepted. That's just mind blowing to our mentality, you know. Yeah.
Can I share another story with you, Brett?
Sure, go ahead.
So we were starting a church up in Huánuco in the Central Mountains, and Pastor Fernando, his family was there, so he wanted to reach out to them. And the Lord put something on his heart that was really sweet. He wanted to invite all of the other churches in the community to an inductive Bible study method.
Okay.
And so he brought the manuals and told everyone it was free, there was no charge, and it was including lunch as well.
Wow.
So they came to the door, and he gave them all a manual, and they asked, how much is this going to cost? And he says, no, this is just to bless you. And then it got to lunchtime, and they knew, okay, this is where
now we're going to have to pay.
Right.
And now we're going to have to pay.
He said, no, this is just to bless you.
Oh, okay.
And so the pastors there were blessed, and it developed a relationship with the other churches. They knew that we weren't there for the money. And we gave them a tool that they could use to do the, verse by verse teaching, chapter by chapter. And they really loved it. Yeah. And so it gave us an open door. It gave us trust with the other pastors. It was a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And I think that should continue too.
Yeah.
And you're saying, Brian, about, how can we sort of support or come alongside, or how can we get involved? And I think that it's important to me to communicate, like, Lima, and I think all over South America, really, like, it's full of people who are willing and ready and able and talented and called and used of the Holy Spirit to reach their own, right? And that's sort of like where I feel like I am, sort of like a missionary to my own. Like, we, it's really, I can think off the top of my head, like probably 5 or 6 guys in our church who are just ready to, they would be out there in a second. But the thing is, how can we build a model where it's sustainable? We don't just send people out and to the wild and just, maybe check back on them next year,
Yeah.
And I think that that's sort of like where we are at, is just, okay, so we know you're ready. We know you have it in you. We know you're called. We know that you're able. How can we come alongside you and sort of help you in moving forward,
Yeah, because you've got the guys that are willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say would be the biggest obstacles to church planting, specifically in Peru or in South America in general?
So that's a great question. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is a sense of, am I able? Like, there's a very deep sense of fear that like, if I step out of this, like, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, and I don't know what I'm signing up for in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas I see a lot of like the missionary mentality of like the go get 'em type of thing. Like, I'm going to do this. Like, there's not a whole lot of that in South America.
Okay.
So we have to encourage locals to step up. And that's what I love what John did with me, is that I, you know, cause that's one of my bigger struggles is like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know what I mean? But like for him to say like, hey, you know, I'm praying for you. Like, here, take this, you know, take this up. Like, that was huge for me. And so I think that there needs to be more of that, like local sort of like pushing.
Empowering the local believers.
Yeah.
That's good. What is it? I mean, you've been doing that for the last 25 years. What is that? I mean, because, you know, you are not a local originally,
Right.
but you've come in order to help empower the local believers. And that's the sustainable model of what we're trying to do. Is the Bible College still in operation at this moment?
It is.
Yeah.
We don't have the numbers since COVID that we had at one time. And we're praying that the Lord will fill all the bunks that we have there. But something that we see is that there's a resource in the young people that are there.
Okay.
And Monolo, when I handed the church over to him, he was 23,
Wow.
22?
22
22. And
Were you married at the time?
he
for
was.
1 year.
For 1 year.
One whole year.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're an expert.
Yeah.
So I think, the young people are so important. They have energy, they have vision, they have.
But that's good of you to believe in the young guys, because that doesn't happen a lot of times. You know, that does not happen, because I mean, I'm getting up to be an older guy too. I'm 45.
Wow.
I know. And, you know, I've always felt like the young guy, because I started pastoring. The planting pastor left Uganda within the first year. I was the pastor, 24. And, you know, I thought I can do it. That's how I felt. And that's probably how you're scared, obviously, you know, it's a big job, but I thought I can do this. But I forget it now that I'm older, that this is the way that some of these young guys feel, that they can do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a way, I feel like we're sort of like avocados, and like we're just like, we're not ripe, and then it's like, and then
You have
one
to
day, like 24 hours later, you're like, oh, I'm overdue. Like,
Yeah.
when was I just right?
Exactly. Let me ask you something about the Bible College.
Yes.
Can American students come over and train in the Bible College?
Yes, we have a full program in English,
Okay.
a full program in Spanish.
All right.
And sometimes the classes are translated, but we have so many pastors that want to come from the States that we can actually offer simultaneous classes.
Because they're already having to be translated into Spanish for the local students. So then if you're English speaking, you can.
That's right.
Okay, I'll put a link to that. So in case some young guys or girls are listening, guys and girls can
That's
come,
right.
okay? Can spend some semesters of is it Calvary Chapel Bible College
That's right.
extension still?
Calvary
Okay.
Chapel Bible College, Peru.
Okay, great.
And we, you know, our emphasis is raising and sending out missionaries.
Okay.
So
Good.
it gives the students the opportunity not only to study God's Word, but to be on the mission field. And many of the students discover their spiritual gifts while they're at the Bible College. They discover their call to ministry, some as pastors, some as missionaries, some as teachers. And so that's what we want to do, is prepare them for the next step after Bible College.
I love it. I love it. Monolo, how can we plant more churches in Peru? Is it funding? Do you need funding?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
You
part
need
of it.
training? You've got
Also.
the Bible College.
Yep. So the Bible College is key in training people. And I think I've always said, you know, that Bible College for young people, at least, is one of the best decisions, you know, that you can do, is just go get training, go get prepared. And John up in Cajamarca with the Bible College that has such a unique sort of emphasis, like he said, and I think it's really great to be able to soak that in and to sort of get the vision of you know, the Spirit moving in that direction of planting churches that are healthy and that are preaching the word and that are reaching the community. So I think training for sure, and I think the connection with the local churches that are already, like we have, like I said, they have 5 or 6 people there that are just kind of ready, and we just we need to craft this program of like, okay, let's sort of pilot it in a way, just send you out, and I think all those things are needed.
Brian, you mentioned finances, and in Peru, as in many places in Latin America, it's a different environment to where the people we're ministering to are very, very poor.
Yeah.
And so a tithe income from them is not very significant in order to cover the needs of the churches.
Of the churches and the pastors and everything.
Exactly. And as the churches grow, there's more financial needs.
Yeah.
And so that's always a challenge. But we've seen the Lord faithful in all of these years in all of our churches, and we're continuing on. But if the funds are there, there's so much more that can be done.
Well, I'm glad you're here today, because the listeners can, and I keep saying this when we're talking about developing nations or nations where there's kind of a need like that, is to go on CGN. We have a place to donate, obviously, but also for church planting, and we'll get those funds out into this specific. And that's what we want to do is Cultivate, is not only help with assessment, are these people ready? Or just this guy, let's say you have a young guy, is he ready? That's assessment. Training, so we're working together with Bible colleges, with local churches, and then also funding. So it does take money. That's what, we need to realize to get off the ground. We have to, you didn't get to the meeting place you were meeting in by going and being a nice guy to the to the landlord. You have to pay the bills, and so there's that. And then also the follow-up, the long-term follow-up in relationship. And I love that you guys are there on the ground in the country to be able to provide that long-term support for the ongoing work. So if you're listening to this, just take a minute. I'll put that link as well, the Bible College one, and then the link for how to donate. And then we can work together on, how can we don't want, what I'm trying to say is we don't want any barrier to be in between the person that God's calling to plant, the team that God's calling to plant more churches, and them getting out on the field. And so I think, between us here with Cultivate, just getting going here, we're going to have that ability to do it. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome.
Guys, great having you on the show. I want to give you one more thing to say that's on your heart, whatever it may be, whatever you want people to know about. John, why don't you go first, and Monolo, you can share your heart.
Well, we are grateful for the involvement, and prayer is so essential, and a large part of what the Lord is doing, he does it because people back home are praying. So we want to say thank you for your prayers, encouragement, visits. We have teams come down and work with us as well.
Great. If someone wanted to bring a team from a church, for example, who do they contact? They contact you?
Yeah, contact the Bible College on the Bible College website. I believe that there is a volunteer page or a teams page.
Or a contact page, I'm sure. So.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll put that link, contact the Bible College, and you'll be able to host.
We'd love to have you come.
Okay, great. Monolo.
Yeah, I am thankful and grateful for the connection here. And this is something I was talking with somebody else earlier, is that, it seems like this sweet sort of fellowship that's happening recently, and our connection with you guys and Cultivate CGN and Calvary, it's just very refreshing.
Yes.
Because this is the thing I wanted to get to, is there's out there in the mission field, can feel sort of lonely at times.
Yeah.
And this sort of brotherly sort of connection and fellowship is so precious, and it needs to happen more, and so I'm grateful for that, to have you guys alongside. Yeah.
Can I come visit you?
Of course.
Go there?
Yes.
Okay.
Please
You'll
do.
have some alpaca steaks.
Oh yeah.
All right.
We'd love to have you in Cotton Market.
Yeah, definitely. I want to plan on coming.
And we'll feed you cuy.
Cuy, what's that? What's that? Cuy?
Guinea pig.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I've eaten a lot of strange things living in East Africa, but
You're ready for it then.
I don't know if I'm ready for it, because it's an acquired taste. All right, guys, thanks for being on the show. God bless you both, and look forward to seeing what God's going to do in the future.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
God bless.